Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to break down the psychology of making money for you today. And I'm telling you right now, this is not going to be some feel-good motivational content where I tell you to visualize your success and manifest abundance. This is about the actual psychological barriers that are keeping you from building real wealth. And here's the thing, most people don't even realize these barriers exist because they're operating on autopilot with belief systems they didn't even choose for themselves. So let me start with the most fundamental truth about money. The difference between people who build wealth and people who stay broke has almost nothing to do with intelligence, luck, or even opportunity. It has everything to do with the psychological programming running in the background of your mind. And I know that sounds abstract, so let me make it concrete for you. Every single financial decision you make, and I mean every single one, is being filtered through what psychologists call your money script. This is the subconscious set of beliefs about money that dictates everything. What job you're willing to take, how much you think you should charge for your services, whether you feel guilty or excited about spending money, whether you even believe you're capable of building wealth in the first place. And here's what makes this so insidious. You probably didn't write this script yourself. Financial psychologists have studied this extensively, and what they found is that your money script gets formed in childhood, way before you're even conscious enough to understand what money actually is. You absorbed it from your parents, from your environment, from offhand comments that seemed meaningless at the time, but got lodged deep in your subconscious. So let me walk you through the 4 main types of money scripts that researchers have identified. And as I go through these, I want you to be honest with yourself about which one sounds the most familiar. Because once you can identify your script, you can start rewriting it. The first one is what they call the money avoider. If you're a money avoider, you fundamentally believe that money is bad and that you don't deserve it. You'll actually sabotage your own success without even realizing it. A lot of money avoiders end up in helping professions that pay very little, and they feel guilty about wanting more money. If you grew up hearing phrases like rich people are greedy or money is the root of all evil, that's probably the script running in your head right now. You've been programmed to associate wealth with moral failure. Then you've got the opposite end of the spectrum, the money worshiper. Money worshipers believe that money will solve all their problems and bring them happiness. They chase money obsessively, but no matter how much they accumulate, it never feels like enough. They hoard resources. They prioritize work over relationships. They're constantly moving the goalpost. First it's making $100,000, then it's $1 million, then it's $10 million. And they tell themselves that once they hit that next number, then they'll finally be happy. But the happiness never comes because the problem isn't the amount of money. It's the belief system. The third script is money status. People with this script tie their self-worth directly to their net worth. They overspend to keep up appearances. They hide their real financial situation, even from their spouses. They feel anxious and inadequate when they're around people who have more money than them. This is the classic keeping up with the Joneses mentality. And research actually shows that this script is linked to lower well-being and increased unhappiness. Because you're trapped in an endless comparison game that you can never win. The last one is money vigilant. Money vigilant people are chronic savers who live below their means, but they experience constant anxiety about their financial future. They're secretive about money. They never feel secure, even when they have plenty saved up. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is the one I identified with most strongly when I first learned about these scripts, which probably seems strange if you're looking at me right now. But here's the truth. I have spent periods of my life where I had a net worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and I still didn't want to spend more than a couple million on a house. I rented for years, and it wasn't because I was being strategic. It was because of this underlying anxiety that never went away no matter how much wealth I built. And I still catch myself doing this. When I see it dip in revenue for a couple months, even though it has zero impact on my personal life, because I don't even take money out of my businesses, I immediately start cutting expenses. I stop looking at things I might want to buy. I tell my team we need to audit our spending and cut anything that's not essential. It's a completely irrational response, but it's the pattern that got programmed into me years ago. So what I've started doing is forcing myself to spend more money when I feel that urge to pull back. And I know that probably sounds like terrible advice, but here's why I do it. I'm teaching my brain that these anxious thoughts are not based in reality. I'm proving to myself that the narrative running in my head has nothing to do with what's actually happening in my life. Now, I want you to think about the phrases you heard about money growing up. Maybe it was, money doesn't grow on trees, or be grateful for what you have, or we can't afford that. Those weren't just casual observations. Those were programming. And once they got written into your subconscious, they started dictating every financial decision you make. Here's what I want you to do. Write down your earliest memory about money. What did your parents say about it? How did they behave with it? What was the energy in the house when money got brought up? That's probably your money script. And once you can see it clearly, you can start rewriting it. Your new script might be something like, money is a tool that lets me create freedom and help more people. It takes the emotion out of it. It reframes money as neutral rather than good or evil. And once you start associating positive feelings with that new narrative, your behaviors will start to align with it. Now, let's talk about the second psychological barrier. This one is what I call the wealth ceiling. And here's how it works. You will sabotage a $200,000 opportunity if you still see yourself as someone who only pursues $50,000 opportunities. The amount of money you're capable of earning is capped by your self-concept. And this applies to everything in your life, not just money. The partner you attract, the job you take, the house you live in. The research on this is very clear. Your self-concept acts like a thermostat. If you see yourself as someone who earns $100,000 a year, you will unconsciously work to maintain that level. And here's the really important part. You will not pursue opportunities above that level. So if you somehow end up making $150,000, you'll probably find ways to spend that extra $50,000. And if you drop down to $80,000, you'll stress and hustle until you're back at your set point. Your brain is constantly trying to regulate you back to what feels normal. I got stuck at this for years. I was making around $85,000 a year at my first job, and I created this entire identity around being scrappy and surviving and just getting by. And even though I knew logically that I could make more, I kept sabotaging myself. When opportunities would come up to increase my income, I would get wound up in anxiety. What if I mess this up? What if I can't actually do it? What if it doesn't work out? I didn't realize at the time that this was my internal thermostat trying to regulate me back down to my comfort zone. If your identity is, I'm someone who struggles with money, you will find ways to keep struggling. But if your identity is, I'm someone who creates and manages wealth, you will find ways to live that out. So here's how you change this. I want you to write this sentence. I'm the kind of person who, and then finish it honestly. Whatever your current financial identity is. I overspend. I underspend. I can never get ahead. I'm bad with money. Whatever it is, write it down. Then draw a line down the middle of your paper. On the other side, right? I'm the kind of person who builds and manages wealth with ease. You don't have to believe it yet. You don't have to feel like that person. I just want you to write it down and not be repulsed by what you see on the paper. And then every single time you make a financial decision, I want you to pull out that piece of paper and look at both statements. That's it. That's all I'm asking you to do right now. Because the moment your self-image starts to expand, your income is going to follow. The third psychological barrier is not understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. And I know this sounds basic, but most people have been programmed to consume rather than build. That's why they stay broke. Robert Kiyosaki said it perfectly in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rich buy assets. The middle class buys liabilities thinking they're assets. And wealth really is this simple. There are two categories. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Most people spend their entire lives buying liabilities and then wondering why they can't get ahead. They ask, can I afford this? Instead of, will this pay me back? They're making purchasing decisions based on whether they have the money right now, not on whether the purchase will generate returns. Let me break down some common examples so you can start seeing the difference clearly. Your car? That's a liability. It loses value immediately. You have insurance, gas, maintenance, repairs. It's constantly taking money out of your pocket. The house you live in? Also a liability. I know this is controversial, but it's true. You have a mortgage, property tax, insurance, repairs. It doesn't generate income. It's just sitting there consuming your money. But a course that teaches you a skill that increases your income, that's an asset. A rental property that generates monthly cash flow, that's an asset. The equipment in your business that helps you generate more revenue, that's an asset as long as you're actually using it. If it's sitting in storage, it's a liability. And here's what I realized that changed everything for me. Money sitting in the bank is actually a liability. It's deteriorating in value over time because of inflation. So if I'm not actively putting my money into things that create more money, I'm losing money. That's when I really started learning how to invest in assets, in skills, in education, in business tools that generate returns. Here's what I want you to do. Look at your last 10 purchases. Write them down. And next to each one, honestly label it as either an asset or a liability. And then commit to asking yourself this question before every future purchase. Is this putting money in my pocket eventually, or is it taking money out? Now, let's talk about scarcity mindset. This is one of the hardest patterns to break because it's literally how humans are wired. But having a scarcity mindset can actually make you dumber. Let me explain that. You either operate from scarcity or abundance. And as humans, we're naturally wired for scarcity. That made sense thousands of years ago when resources actually were finite. If someone else in your tribe had all the berries, that meant less for you and your family. Your survival instinct was screaming at you to protect what you have and compete for limited resources. But here's the problem. Your brain is still running that same software, except now it's applying it to money. And money is not a finite resource. Money is being created every single day. But your scarcity brain doesn't understand that. And scarcity actually changes your brain. When you perceive resources as scarce, your cognitive bandwidth shrinks. You make worse decisions. You can't plan long-term. You only focus on immediate survival. People with a scarcity mindset hoard money instead of investing it. They only think short-term. They see every opportunity as a threat. But if you can train yourself into an abundance mindset, everything changes. Abundance says there's always more to create. I can afford to invest. I can take calculated risks because opportunities are everywhere. It's seeing the world as an infinite pie instead of a finite one. When I operated from scarcity, I was terrified to spend money on things that would make me better or make my business better. Because what if the money stops coming? What if this is it? What if I never make money again? Especially in the first few years of my business, this was constant. The shift happened when I realized that money is renewable. Skills compound. Relationships compound. Opportunities compound. The more I invest in myself, in my business, in my growth, the more I get back tenfold. So here's what I did. I hired a coach for $40,000 a month when my business was only making $50,000 a month. My scarcity brain was screaming at me. You just started making this money. You're going to go broke. What if it stops tomorrow? But my abundance brain said, you went from making $10,000 to $30,000 to $50,000. Next month, you'll probably make $100,000. And this investment is going to help you make even more. So I ignored the scarcity voice. I didn't try to make it go away. I just chose not to follow its directions. And that coach was the reason I was able to scale one of my companies to the point where I could sell it for tens of millions of dollars. Here's how you build an abundance mindset. Become aware of when you're making decisions from fear versus possibility. When you think, I can't afford this, reframe it to, how could I afford this? That simple shift changes everything. Because you stop asking, how do I protect what I have? And start asking, how do I create more? The fifth psychological barrier is loss aversion. This is why you hold on to losing investments, avoid taking risks, and stay stuck where you are. Research by Daniel Kahneman showed that the pain of losing $100 is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $100. Losing feels twice as bad as winning feels good. This is why you hold on to stocks that are tanking, hoping they'll recover instead of cutting your losses. Why you stay in dead-end jobs and bad relationships. Why you don't negotiate your salary. Why you avoid investing altogether. The fear of loss outweighs the potential gain. I stayed in a terrible job for 2 years longer than I should have because leaving felt like losing, but staying cost me way more. money, mental energy, mental health, probably years off my life. But the fear of loss was bigger than the logic of leaving. Your brain is designed to protect what you have, not pursue what you could have. And that's why most people never take the risks required to build real wealth. But here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're just human. We're all wired this way. Here's how you break the cycle. Reframe every loss as tuition. If you lose $50,000 on a business venture, you didn't lose $50,000. You paid $50,000 for an education that's going to make you millions. When I changed that frame for myself, loss stopped controlling me. I had a business situation recently where there was about a $3 million disagreement. And I chose to take the loss because I realized I should have defined terms more clearly at the beginning of the relationship. So when I talked about it, I said I paid $3 million to learn that lesson. And honestly, I'd pay $3 million again to learn it, because that lesson is going to save me tens of millions in the future. Now, the last psychological barrier might be the most important one, and this is what I call the time trap. Most people spend their entire lives trying to save money, and that is exactly what keeps them from making money. They forget that money multiplies, but time doesn't. That's why you need to save time instead of saving money. Here's what I mean. If you make $100 an hour, doing anything worth less than $100 an hour is costing you money. If you spend 2 hours cleaning your house instead of hiring someone for $50, you didn't save $50. You lost $150, because that's 2 hours at $100 per hour minus the $50 you didn't pay. Wealthy people understand this. They buy time. They hire assistants, meal prep services, housekeepers. Not because they're lazy, but because their time is worth more when they put it elsewhere. And I didn't wait until I was rich to do this. The first thing I hired when I barely had any money was an assistant. When I could barely afford to hire 6 people for my team, one of them was an assistant. Because I said, this is what rich people do. They get their time back. And if I'm spending my time on household tasks and errands, I'm not making money. Poor and middle-class people tend to sell their time. They trade hours for dollars. They do everything themselves to save money and then wonder why they're not getting ahead. When I started filtering every decision through does this buy me time or cost me time, everything changed. I stopped doing $10 an hour tasks. I hired help. I automated things. And I focused on work that was worth $1,000 an hour or more. You can calculate your hourly rate right now. Take your annual income and divide it by 2,000 work hours. That's it. That's what your time is worth. So then you ask yourself, is this task worth my hourly rate? I have this written on a card. I'll look at a task and ask myself, is this worth $5,000 an hour for me to do? Because that's what my time is worth. And if the answer is no, I delegate it or automate it or eliminate it entirely. Here's how you get out of the time trap. Calculate your hourly rate. Then audit your time. Look, then systematically remove yourself from those tasks. My favorite thing is when someone on my team comes to me and says they're doing work that's not worth what I'm paying them. I had someone do this recently. They showed me their calendar for the last 4 weeks and calculated how many hours they were spending on administrative tasks. And I was horrified. So I immediately hired them an assistant who started 3 days later. Because anyone who thinks in terms of return on investment, I'm going to create more leverage for them. And then they're going to create more value. And everyone wins. So here's my challenge for you. Pick one of these psychological barriers. Just one. The one where you think you're going to get the most gains. And start practicing the shift this week. Rewrite your money script. Expand your wealth ceiling. Start distinguishing assets from liabilities. Train your abundance mindset. Reframe losses as tuition. Buy back your time. Pick one and commit to it. Because the psychology of making money isn't about learning some secret strategy. It's about rewiring the programming that's been running your financial life on autopilot. And once you change the internal game, the external results will follow. I break down money, psychology, and wealth the way no one teaches it. Subscribe if you want the real game, not the motivational version.